Welcome to Martha's Stories.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. You won't co-sign your own grandson's loan? Then don't expect to stay here for long. The spatula hit the sink with a wet slap. Lydia didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. Her words did the cutting. I was holding a warm dish towel, halfway through drying a plate. Zach's footsteps were still echoing down the hallway, his sneakers squeaking on the laminate. 20 years old and already good at storming out when things don't go his way. He just needs help getting that car, Lydia muttered, grabbing the pan like it had personally offended her. He's working. He's trying. But I guess that's not enough for you. I folded the towel slowly. He needs to learn how to wait for things. To work a little longer, save a little more. Lydia turned to face me fully then. We took you in. After your surgery, we gave up the office, rearranged everything. That room could have been mine. There it was. The rent I didn't know I owed. I met her eyes. So my signature is the price of staying? She scoffed. Don't twist things. It's a loan. A formality. But it wasn't. I'd been to that bank branch. I knew what a cosign meant. If he missed a payment, it was on me. And Zach? He burned through money like kindling. I didn't say anything else. At 76, you learn when silence says more than defense. That night, in my small guest room at the back of their house, I sat in the dark. The lamp wouldn't turn on. I tried the switch. Nothing. The outlet near the door? Dead. Only my room. The rest of the house glowed warm. Hallway light. TV. Kitchen. I sat in that dim, airless quiet and understood. This wasn't about a loan. It was about leverage. I used to be needed. Now I was just here. You helped. But now you're in the way. I laid down under the scratchy throw Lydia insisted was cozy, and stared at the ceiling. They didn't lock me out. Not yet. But they started turning off the lights. 3 months ago they cleared out the back room for me. Lydia called it a gift. Said it was only right I come live with them after the hip surgery. Zach had moved into the basement. We'll make it work, she'd said, smoothing the blanket on the narrow bed, tucking the corners too tightly. It wasn't a warm welcome. It was a negotiation dressed as kindness. I brought little with me. A suitcase, my pillbox, the robe Derek gave me one Christmas before his lungs gave out. I remember thinking this will only be for a few months. Just until I'm steady again. I had no plans to overstay. I'd even offered to pay rent to help with groceries. Lydia waved it off back then. That first week I baked an apple pie. My hand still remembered the rhythm, even if the arthritis made the peeling slower. Zach had 3 slices. You still got it, Grandma, he said. He meant it then. I kept trying to show gratitude. Folding laundry, feeding the cat, watering Lydia's succulents when they forgot. I kept my radio low, stayed out of their way. And still things shifted. First, Lydia started sighing whenever I turned on the heater. Then Zach accidentally unplugged my TV to use the outlet. I didn't say anything. I just adjusted. That's what mothers do, right? Adjust. I used to tell myself, this is family. This is what helping looks like. But last week I overheard them. Zach whispering in the hallway. She's not going anywhere, is she? And Lydia. Not unless she gets the hint. I stood on the other side of the wall, my hand wrapped around a teacup. I didn't drop it. I didn't gasp. I just stood there still and hollow. They're not waiting for you to recover. They're waiting for you to leave. I had brought so much softness into this house. Fresh linens, warm soup, silent understanding. They brought expectation. Conditions. Edges. The towel rack in the bathroom I installed myself had been taken down. It didn't match the aesthetic, Lydia said. But really it just reminded them I was here. That night, I took down the photo of me and Derek they let me hang by the mirror. I put it back in my suitcase. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want them touching it when I left. Maybe I already knew I was leaving. I was coming back from the pharmacy when I saw it. Zach had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. Careless, loud, just like he always was when things weren't about him. I didn't mean to look. But the screen lit up as I walked by. It was a group chat. A thread labeled Thanksgiving plans. There were names I recognized: Lydia, Zach, her coworker Marla, even an aunt I hadn't heard about in years. But not mine. There were emojis, recipes, plans for a smoked turkey, photos of a long dining table setup Lydia had clearly staged in the garage, candles, cloth napkins, printed place cards. I scrolled. That's when I saw it. Zach. We good not telling her yet? She'll make it about herself. Lydia. She'll figure it out. It's not like she's on social. Just act normal. I didn't touch the keyboard. I didn't make a sound. I just stood there, the bag of pills sweating in my palm. They weren't planning to include me. They weren't forgetting. They were excluding. It wasn't just the loan. I was never going to be part of that dinner. A family-sized table. My name erased in advance. The oven beeped. I backed away slowly, went to my room, closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my own reflection in the dark window. It looked like someone else was trapped inside. That night, Zach came in like nothing had happened. Asked where the mustard was. I told him. Calmly. He didn't say thank you. They never do once they've decided your background. I was the silence between their scenes. The hands that set the table no one saved me a seat at. Later, when they thought I was asleep, I heard them again. Lydia. I wish she'd just go live somewhere else. She's not even happy here. Zach. She's old. She'll get over it. Or forget it. No one forgets being erased. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't write a note. That morning, I folded the blanket on the foot of my bed like I always did. Made tea. Watered Lydia's plants. Took the trash out without being asked. Then I left. Not to run away. Just to breathe somewhere that wasn't filled with obligations and flickering judgment. I rode the 8:15 bus downtown. Sat near the back beside a window smeared with fingerprints. Outside, the city passed in quick blurs. A man walking a three-legged dog, kids biking too fast, a woman yelling into her phone. All of it felt more familiar than my own kitchen. I got off near the station. Not the main one. The smaller one. The kind with plastic chairs and vending machines that only take exact change. I bought a coffee from a grimy kiosk, sat under a yellowing departure board, and watched people go. A woman in her 20s sat beside me. Worn sneakers, a baby strapped to her chest. She looked over once, then away. You waiting for someone? She asked. No, I said. Just waiting to feel like myself again. She nodded slowly like she understood more than she should. That's when it hit me. I wasn't running. I was remembering. Remembering how it feels to be a person. Not a role. Not a placeholder. I opened my notebook, the one with the red elastic band. On the second page was an address I hadn't looked at in years. 118 Brookside Lane. It was written in Derek's hand. A rental we once considered. He'd called it the just-in-case house. I never threw that page out. I found a payphone. Yes, they still exist if you know where to look. Dialed information. Asked if anything was listed at that address. There was. It was still a rental. Still standing. I scribbled the name of the landlord. I walked out of the station without a plan. Just a name, an address, and a feeling like something inside me had shifted an inch toward center. That evening I didn't return home. I found a cheap motel near the edge of town. Cash only. The room smelled like bleach and old promises. I lay on the stiff bed, eyes open, hands folded over my stomach like a woman at peace for the first time in years. They don't know I'm gone. And I'm not sure I'll tell them. The motel was silent except for the ticking of an old heater in the wall and the occasional truck passing outside. I sat on the bed, the TV remote untouched beside me. No sound felt better than anything fake. I plugged in my phone for the first time in 2 days. 4 texts from Lydia. 2 from Zach. Lydia? Are you okay? Then. Are you at church or something? Then. I need to know if you're coming back. Then finally. If you're not going to respond, we'll assume you're not. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email. An old inbox I hadn't checked in a while. Mostly junk, coupons, church newsletters. And one message from my bank. Subject. Cosigner authorization request. Vehicle loan. Dated 4 days before the kitchen argument. Attached, Lydia's name. Zach's name. And mine. I hadn't signed anything. But the request was submitted. I clicked decline. It didn't ask for confirmation. Just closed. The screen went still. They weren't just hoping I'd say yes. They were planning to move forward like I already had. They didn't want my permission. They wanted my absence. I called the bank's fraud line. Explained calmly. The woman on the phone sounded younger than Zach. She paused when I gave her the account number. "Ma'am, do you live at 1223 Violet Creek Road?" "I did," I said. "Until recently. There was a login from that location on Thursday. Attempted authorization." My hands didn't shake, but my breath slowed. That was the night after I said no. The same night the lamp went out. "I'd like to set up extra verification," I said, "and remove any secondary access." "Already done," she said. "It's your account, Mrs. Wallace. Only yours." Those words hit me in the ribs. Not because I didn't know it, because I needed someone else to say it. I left the motel that afternoon. Walked 3 blocks in the rain without an umbrella. Bought a new journal from a corner store. Thick cover. Clean pages. On the first page I wrote, "They didn't break me. They just showed me the door." And then, I didn't leave the family. I just refused to fund it. I didn't tell anyone. No call. No dramatic message. No goodbye post with vague meaning. I just opened the metal tin I kept at the bottom of my suitcase. The one with Derek's old insurance documents, a few savings bonds, and one yellowing business card paperclipped to a folded envelope. Nancy Brower. Estate planning. Elder law. I hadn't spoken to her in over 6 years. But I remembered how she looked at me. Like I was more than someone's mother. Like I was the client. I called her from the motel bathroom. Sat on the edge of the tub with the shower running to drown out the echo. "Mrs. Wallace," she said, her voice still sharp and warm. "What can I do for you?" "I'd like to update my will," I said, "and make some changes to my accounts." There was a pause. Then the sound of a pen clicking. "Are you safe?" she asked, low and careful. "Yes. I just want my life to belong to me again." She didn't ask why. Just gave me a time, Tuesday 11 a.m. and directions to her new office. I hung up, heart still. That afternoon I bought a one-way train ticket. Nothing fancy. Window seat. Departure Friday. Destination Ashburn. A town where no one knew my name. But there was an apartment listed for rent on a flyer I'd found at the bus depot bulletin board. Ground floor. Washer and dryer included. I also closed the joint grocery store account Lydia had added me to. Quietly. Without alert. Back in the motel room I packed only what mattered, 2 dresses, the cardigan Derek once called that storm-colored thing, my pillbox, the letter from the bank, and the journal I'd started 2 days ago. I left the rest. Clothes I'd folded for someone else's shelves. A life that no longer needed me except for my signature. When I called the number on the rental flyer, a woman named Carol answered. Said she'd show me the place Monday. Asked how many people would be living there. "Just me." "You okay with quiet?" she asked. "I've earned quiet," I said. I hung up and crossed out my name on the notepad Lydia had taped to the fridge, the one where we each wrote down things to pick up from the store. My handwriting was still there from the week before. Tea bags, cat litter, apples. Crossed it all out. And underneath I wrote, "I was never just staying. I was recovering. Now I'm done." The town of Ashburn didn't look like much from the train window. Just a stretch of buildings leaning slightly with age, a gas station, 2 diners, and a post office with a crooked flag. But it was quiet, and I was no longer trying to impress anyone. The cab driver was a middle-aged woman with a cracked leather seat and gospel music playing soft through dusty speakers. Her name tag read Brenda. She loaded my small bag into the trunk without asking questions. As we drove, she glanced at me in the mirror. "You movin' in or movin' on?" she asked. I paused, then answered honestly, "Little of both." She nodded like that made perfect sense. "You don't have the look of someone running. You look like someone who finally stopped waiting." We pulled up to the rental. A squat beige building with ivy growing wild around the porch railings. Carol, the landlord, waved from the doorway. "Call me if you ever need anything," Brenda said as I reached for my bag. Then added, "You remind me of my mother. She left late too. But she left." Inside, the apartment was modest. A twin bed, a shelf with mismatched mugs, sunlight pouring through a dusty window. Carol was brisk but kind. "Most folks your age don't come here alone," she said, handing me the keys. I smiled. That's probably why I like it. She glanced at the bag in my hand. This all you brought? Everything else didn't belong to me anymore. I signed the lease with a hand that didn't shake. Later, I walked 2 blocks to the corner cafe. The waitress behind the counter looked 19, with chipped nail polish and a tired ponytail. When I ordered black coffee, she gave me a long look. You not from here, she said. No. You here to start something or end something? I stirred my sugar slowly. Just looking for something that doesn't ask too much of me. She refilled my cup without charging me. Well, she said, you look like someone who picked herself. The knock came on a Thursday afternoon. I had just finished folding laundry, 2 shirts, a pair of pants, 1 sweater. That's all I owned now, and it was enough. I looked through the peephole. Lydia. Her face was tighter, her hair pulled back the way she wore it when things spun out of control. She looked older than I remembered. Or maybe just more undone. I didn't open the door right away. Just watched her shift her weight, glance at her phone, look around like the world owed her a better reception. Finally, I opened it. Just a crack. Mom, she said like it was a question. You just left. No, I said. I stopped staying. She blinked. You could have told us. Zach thought you were hurt. Did he? Her eyes darted. This place, what is this? You're living in. What a room. You don't even have your things. These are my things. The rest was theirs. She stepped forward. I didn't move. The door stayed at that crack. That was as much as I'd give her. We didn't mean for it to get like that, she said. I didn't reply. We were just under a lot of stress. You know how things get. I looked at her then. Really looked. No, I said. I know how people get when the mask slips. Her mouth open, closed. She looked like she wanted to cry, but not for me. For herself. You said, don't expect to stay. So I stopped expecting. From all of you. She reached into her purse, pulled out a letter. Zach wrote this. He feels awful. I didn't take it. Tell him, I said. Now he knows what silence sounds like, from someone who always showed up. She didn't speak after that. Just stood there with that envelope in her hand like a white flag no one believed in. I didn't close the door. She stepped back on her own. And that somehow hurt her more. They tried to find me. I know because Nancy, my lawyer, called to say Zach had been asking questions. About accounts. About property. About what Grandma had intended. He called it a misunderstanding. She called it what it was. A late interest in what doesn't belong to him. She told him calmly that everything was updated. Will. Trust. Emergency contacts. Beneficiaries. I had rewritten the future in quiet ink. Lydia emailed next. Not a long message, just a screenshot of an overdue utility bill and the words, "You really left us like this?" I didn't answer. Because I hadn't left them with anything. They had always stood alone. They just didn't notice until the lights flickered. I checked my bank app. The new password worked. The name on the account was mine. Just mine. A week later, a formal letter arrived at the cafe where I now worked part-time. I'd used it as a mailing address for the lawyer's forms. Heather, my manager, handed it to me like it might be something serious. From your daughter? She asked. I nodded, slipped it into my coat pocket without opening it. That night, I shredded it page by page over a trash bin behind the building. Cold wind pulled the pieces into the dark. Some things aren't meant to be reread. The new apartment had a shelf now, small but mine. On it, a framed photo of Derek, my journal, and a tiny clay bowl I found at a thrift shop. No heirlooms. No traces of what I left behind. When I spoke to Nancy again, she asked if I wanted to notify anyone in the family officially. No, I said. Let them guess. She paused. You've protected everything. They can't access a dime. I know. Would you like me to send a formal letter of removal to them? No. I've already sent the message. I disappeared. She understood. She always did. They didn't erase me. I just rewrote the ending. I walked home that night with a paper bag of groceries. Inside, coffee, apples, soup mix. Enough for one. The woman at the corner store smiled when I came in. She always did now. I wasn't someone's mother anymore. Just a neighbor. A regular. And regular was enough. The kitchen window in my new place faces east. Morning light hits the table just right, soft and golden. The kind Derek used to call quiet sun. I bake again. Not every day, not for anyone else. Just enough. Today it's an apple pie. Small, 6 inches across. My hands move slowly now, but they remember. Slice, fold, crimp. No rush. No audience. No one waiting to be fed except me. I sit with a cup of tea while it bakes. Steam curls in the sunlight. The radio hums something old and sweet. And outside someone's child is laughing. Not mine, not anymore. But the sound doesn't sting. It just floats. The phone doesn't ring. I don't check it anymore. There's nothing I'm hoping to hear. No one I'm hoping will say, "I'm sorry," loud enough to undo what they did in whispers. On the counter is a notebook with no names in it. Just lists of small things that bring me back to myself. Cinnamon. Warm socks. Silence that isn't punishment. A door I can lock because it's mine. A neighbor knocks sometimes. Heather from the cafe brings leftovers after her shift. We don't talk about families. We talk about weather, book sales, strange customers. The pie is ready. I slice it in half. One for now. One for the freezer. A quiet ritual of someone who has stopped performing usefulness. They don't know where I live. They never will. Because this place? It isn't hidden. It's just not for them. I take my plate to the window and eat slowly. Not because I have to stretch the time, but because the time finally feels like it's mine. They won't come looking again. I made sure of that. Not with locks. With silence. Not with explanations. With absence. I light a candle on the table. No holiday. No guests. Just me. And that finally is enough. I close my eyes. I breathe. Then I whisper to no one and everyone. Sometimes love is just the decision to stop explaining. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.